The morning after my fiancé disappeared, I found a yellow envelope taped to our apartment door. Inside was a notice saying we owed $4,870 in unpaid rent and fees. I remember reading it 3 times, because every month I had sent my half of the rent to Daniel, and every month he told me he had paid it. But Daniel was gone. His clothes were gone, his laptop was gone, even the coffee machine his mother gave us for Christmas was gone. And when I opened our shared financial accounts, I realized the unpaid rent was only the beginning. My name is Rachel Bennett. I was 33 years old, living outside Denver, Colorado, and until that morning, I thought I was building a life with the man I was supposed to marry. Daniel and I had been together for almost 5 years. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either. I worked as an administrative coordinator for a healthcare company, earning about $61,000 a year. Daniel worked in sales, and depending on his commissions, he usually made more than I did. At least, that's what he told me. We split most household expenses. I paid for groceries, utilities, and our car insurance. Daniel handled the rent and several shared bills. It seemed simple, normal. And after almost 5 years together, I never thought I needed to verify every payment. That was my first mistake. The night before I found the notice, Daniel and I had argued, not about money, about our wedding. We had been engaged for 11 months, but every time I tried to set a date, Daniel found another reason to wait. Work was too busy, flights were too expensive, his family needed more time. That night, I finally asked him if he actually wanted to marry me. He stared at the floor for a long time. Then he said, "I don't know." I slept in the bedroom. He slept on the couch. At least, I thought he did. When I woke up at 6:20 the next morning, the apartment was silent. His side of the closet was empty, his toothbrush was missing, and his phone went directly to voicemail. Then I found the envelope. I immediately called Daniel. No answer. I texted him, "What's going on?" Nothing. Then I called the apartment management office. The woman who answered pulled up our account. There was a pause. "Miss Bennett, your account has been carrying a balance for months." My stomach dropped. I told her that couldn't be right. She began reading the payment history. Partial payment, late fee, another partial payment, another late fee. Daniel hadn't been paying the full rent, but every month I had transferred him exactly what he asked for. I opened my banking app and started scrolling. $1,250, $1,250, $1,300, month after month. The money had left my account. It just hadn't reached our landlord. I called Daniel again. Still nothing. That's when I remembered the credit card. 8 months earlier, we had opened a card together to pay for wedding expenses. The agreement was simple. Small purchases only, and we would pay the balance together. I hadn't checked it in months. My hands were shaking when I logged in. The balance wasn't $2,000. It wasn't $5,000. It was $14,683. There were restaurant charges I didn't recognize, hotel rooms, cash advances, electronics, and several payments that had been reversed. Then I noticed something that made everything worse. Daniel hadn't just been using our joint card. He'd added my information to another account I didn't remember opening. By lunchtime, I had started adding the numbers together. Unpaid rent and fees, credit cards, utility balances, a personal loan connected to our shared expenses, nearly $30,000. And somehow, my name was attached to almost all of it. I sat alone at our kitchen table, surrounded by statements, trying to understand how 5 years of trust had turned into $30,000 of debt overnight. Then my phone finally buzzed. It was a text from Daniel. Just 7 words. "I'm sorry, I can't deal with this." I called immediately. The number was already disconnected. And 2 days later, I discovered where some of the missing money had actually gone. That's when I realized Daniel hadn't simply left me with the bills. He'd been planning his exit for months. 2 days after Daniel disappeared, I found a folder hidden in the back of our bedroom closet. I wasn't looking for evidence. I was looking for an old insurance document. But underneath a stack of empty boxes was a plain black folder I'd never seen before. Inside were bank statements, receipts, and a printed confirmation for a storage unit across town. The first statement showed a checking account in Daniel's name. I scanned the transactions, then I saw them. Transfers: $1,250, $1,300, $1,250. The same amounts I had been sending him for rent. Except, instead of paying our landlord, Daniel had been moving part of that money into his private account. My hands went cold. I kept reading. 3 months before he left, he had paid nearly $3,800 to a moving company. Then came a security deposit for an apartment I had never heard of, then furniture purchases, then a plane ticket. Daniel hadn't panicked after our argument and walked away. He had prepared for this for months. And while I was discussing wedding venues, he was financing a new life with money I thought was paying for ours. I drove to the storage facility listed in the folder. The employee wouldn't tell me anything about Daniel's unit, but as I stood in the parking lot, I remembered all the things that had slowly disappeared from our apartment. A television from the guest room, a set of expensive speakers, several kitchen appliances. Every time I asked, Daniel had an explanation. He had loaned something to a friend, he was getting something repaired, he was selling old things to save for the wedding. I had believed every word. That evening, I called my older sister. I hadn't told anyone the full story yet. When I finally said the number out loud, almost $30,000, there was silence. And then she asked me one question. "Rachel, have you checked your credit report?" I hadn't. 20 minutes later, I was staring at the screen. My credit score had dropped more than 100 points. There were late payments connected to accounts with my name on them. The joint credit card was nearly maxed out, and the personal loan I'd discovered was already past due. Suddenly, this wasn't just about paying back money. My financial identity had been damaged. The following week, I froze my credit, changed every password, closed whatever accounts I legally could, documented every transaction, and filed disputes for anything I genuinely didn't recognize. But Daniel was still gone. His family claimed they didn't know where he was. His friends stopped answering my calls. Then, almost 2 weeks after he disappeared, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. There was no apology, no explanation, just one sentence. "Stop looking for me and handle your half." My half? I stared at those words until my hands started shaking, because I'd just received another document that morning. A statement Daniel apparently didn't know had been forwarded to our old address. And according to that statement, the $30,000 I knew about wasn't the full amount. There was one more account, and this one had my signature on it. The only problem was, I had never signed it. I stared at the signature for almost a minute. It looked like mine. Same slant, same looping R. Even the way the last name ended looked familiar. But I knew I had never signed that loan application. The account showed an original balance of $11,400. Daniel had apparently opened it months before he disappeared. Suddenly, the damage wasn't close to $30,000 anymore. If this account was legitimate, I could be looking at more than $40,000 in total debt. I immediately called the attorney. She told me not to contact Daniel, not yet. Instead, she told me to preserve everything: the loan documents, the emails, the text messages, the bank statements, every piece of evidence. Then I contacted the lender and formally disputed the account. I also filed an identity theft report and followed the required steps to document that I believed my signature had been forged. For the first time since Daniel disappeared, I felt like I was doing something other than reacting. But fixing the fraudulent account didn't solve everything. The joint debts were still real. The unpaid rent was still real. And my credit was still damaged. I moved out of our apartment and stayed with my sister temporarily. At 33 years old, I packed most of my life into cardboard boxes and moved into her spare bedroom. It felt humiliating, but that room gave me something I desperately needed: time. I stopped thinking about how to fix my entire life overnight. Instead, I made a list. First, protect my identity. Second, separate every account connected to Daniel. Third, deal with the debts I was legally responsible for. Fourth, rebuild. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't quick, but it worked. The disputed loan took months to investigate. Eventually, after reviewing the documentation, the lender removed the fraudulent account from my responsibility. That was $11,400 I wouldn't have to repay. But I still faced thousands in legitimate joint obligations. I negotiated a repayment arrangement for the apartment balance. I worked with creditors on the joint accounts. I cut nearly every unnecessary expense. No vacations, no new furniture, no expensive dinners. I even picked up freelance administrative work on weekends. Every extra dollar had one job: get me out. 6 months after Daniel left, I found a small apartment owned by an independent landlord who agreed to consider my income and explanation alongside my damaged credit. It wasn't the apartment I imagined living in at 34, but when I closed the door behind me on the first night, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: safe. A year later, I had paid off a significant portion of the debt. My credit score was slowly recovering. My emergency fund had started growing again. Daniel never came back. I heard through a mutual friend that he had moved to another state. For a long time, I wanted an explanation. I wanted him to tell me why 5 years together meant so little, why he took my money, why he left me with accounts he helped create. But eventually, I realized something. An explanation wouldn't rebuild my credit. It wouldn't return the months I spent afraid to answer my phone, and it wouldn't undo what happened. So, I stopped waiting for one. The hardest lesson wasn't that someone I loved could lie to me. It was realizing that I had confused trust with financial protection. I thought checking our accounts meant I didn't trust Daniel. I thought asking questions made me suspicious. I thought love meant I shouldn't need to verify anything. I was wrong. You can love someone and still know what's attached to your name. You can trust someone and still review your credit report. You can share a life without giving another person complete control over your financial future. Today, I check every account regularly. My credit stays frozen unless I need it, and I will never again sign or share responsibility for a financial agreement I don't completely understand. Daniel left me with nearly $30,000 in legitimate bills and a fraudulent loan that could have added thousands more. But he didn't take everything, because eventually, I stopped chasing the person who disappeared and started rebuilding the life he left behind. Sometimes the most expensive financial lesson isn't about money. It's learning that protecting yourself and trusting someone can exist at the same time. Be honest. What would you do if your partner disappeared and left you responsible for nearly $30,000 in bills and joint debt? Could you ever forgive them? Would you fight every account you could, or accept the loss and focus on rebuilding your life? Share your thoughts below. Your perspective might help someone else think differently about love, trust, and shared finances. If you enjoy powerful money stories with real financial consequences and life lessons, subscribe to Dollar Confessions for more.